This is the Bank of China large tower building located in China. And actually, it's been an interesting story that came up less than a week ago, last Wednesday, that the Federal Reserve Board announced on May 9th, which was last Wednesday, 2012, it was approving the application of the Industrial and Commerce Bank of China Limited, China's largest bank, and two Chinese firms, to purchase the Bank of East Asia USA located in New York City. So it's the first time an actual Chinese bank is purchasing a U.S. bank. So that supposedly was big news, but it could lead to further things down the road. You know, assuming maybe there's a financial crisis in the banking system. I don't think so, because I think for the most part, at least the biggest banks are flush with cash right now. The 2008 scenario probably will not occur all over again. It seems like it's occurring in the metals, but I don't think it's going to occur in the banking system. Of course, there is one curveball out there, and that's called the derivatives bubble, and a number of financial people that are in top positions that have resigned over the last 8 months. So I guess, there is always a possibility for a banking crisis despite them being flush with cash, because there is not enough cash to cover all those derivatives, that's for sure, if there's ever a real problem with that. Now, I find it interesting that, there's been a lot of red alert, the Chinese are buying a U.S. bank, and it collapses near. That, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to play out or not, because, I can remember back quite some time ago, a couple of decades ago, basically, practically, when the Japanese were buying up everything in the United States, so assets and different things like that, and banks and you name it, right? And it was almost like, gee, they're taking over the United States. Then there was a slowdown in Japan, and basically they had the lost decade. I don't know. It could happen with China. Who knows? I mean, yeah, I guess China's going to do better and better over maybe the next decades and decades, but they can have a little bit of a slowdown too. And actually, I think that the price of oil is going to probably put an end to globalization, so you're probably not going to see. There might be things getting more regionalized unless they find out a new way to provide energy to the world that's cheaper than oil, because crude oil is going to get so expensive that you're not going to see them shipping goods across the world to go to China to be manufactured and to be re-exported. They're probably going to start up new localized manufacturing facilities in the United States and continue from there as they were before, because of all the transportation costs involved. The United States does have a lot of raw materials and commodities. It's a fairly commodity-rich nation, and it's pretty close to energy independent, actually. It's just that we're such big energy consumers. That's one of the big deals. And actually, it's forecast the U.S. will be energy independent probably in not that many years. Not that many years. It's going to be the number one oil producer in the world. But this is not about that. This is about a speech that Ben Bernanke did in 2002. And I want to highlight this because there's a lot of things going on, rumors and stuff about a 40% devaluation of the dollar coming up in 2012. I saw that, and there's all these things out there saying that there's Federal Reserve people working with Chinese all behind closed doors. I don't know how truthful this is. It may be that the commodities are going to get pushed down really hard. They're going to fly. That could very well be. It seems like the unexpected happens many times, and this seems to be the final pullback in the commodities. Now, I know Pastor Lindsey Williams talked about this stuff, and I'm just going to get it straight from the internet. I mean, this is the actual thing right off the Federal Reserve Board. Remarks by Governor Ben S. Bernanke back in 2002, before he was, he was actually head of the Federal Reserve. I just want to point out what it is, and actually did most of this stuff. So, I also want to point out to the silver and gold crowd. This is the guy. I don't know if he's evil. I don't know if he's evil. I don't know. Say he's evil, but this is the guy that's going to make your gold and silver go up faster than all the other asset classes. And the way he's going to do that is keeping interest rates at zero, doing QE, and devaluing the dollar. So if you have gold and silver, you actually shouldn't be throwing stones at Ben Bernanke for doing his stuff, because he's going to raise up those assets a lot. Sometimes I wish people in the silver and gold committee area would shut up and just say, come on, just let him do his. I'm like, don't be critical of the guy. Don't like say he's anti-American or something. You know, I'm thinking to myself, let him do his thing. Let him do his QE 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. Gold is $20,000 an ounce. Great. You know, property goes down to 10% of its value. You know, whatever, right? And you got the gold and you swap it for the property. What do you do, right? I mean, that's. I don't know, man. I'm just wondering about some of these gold and silver people throwing stones at this guy. Let him do what he wants, you know. Or maybe you could sell it to Ben Bernanke for the price, and you can get rid of his annuities, and you could sell it to him when it hits the high. You know, how's that? Give him a deal. The sources. He goes on to say that the sources of deflation are not a mystery. Deflation is in almost all cases is a side effect of collapse of aggregate demand, a drop in spending so severe that producers must cut prices on an ongoing basis to find buyers. So they don't have any sales. They just keep dropping prices until they find, buyers bite. It's probably a decent enough for definition of deflation. You might say it's the aggregate. There's more goods out there and there's not enough money chasing the goods. And then you have to print more money. I don't know. That's probably another definition, but that's a good definition too. I mean, I would think it's part of the what's going on, that they have to keep dropping prices until they find the right equilibrium where people are going to buy. Deflation of sufficient magnitude may result in nominal interest rates declining to zero or very close to zero. So he's already done that. He brought the rates to zero. So that was the first thing he was going to do. However, a principal message in my talk today, talking about Ben, is that a central bank whose customs policy rate has been forced down to zero has most definitely not run out of ammunition. He's got more things he'll do. Push inflation all the way down to zero. That's what they try to do in normal times, so they have a buffer. In other words, if everything's going good, they try to manage the economy. Hate that word, but that's what they're doing. They try to manage the economy. It sounds like fascism or communism or something, but that's what they're doing to push the inflation all the way down to zero. Now, I don't think in our nation it's exactly like that, but I'm not too cool on this centralized control garbage. But it seems like no matter what system you got in place, even with this Federal Reserve system, you could still have a bunch of localized little demons out there and smaller banks that are ripping people off and playing games too. It's almost like no matter what you do, you got to be constantly vigilant. There actually is no set solution. Second, the Fed should almost take seriously this is the responsibility to ensure financial stability in the economy. In violent financial crises, they lead to fire sales of assets and falling asset prices. People are demanding cash. That's something where Mark Farber talks about the wisdom of holding a good chunk of your money in cash too, and also in cash. The reason being is so if you have to ride out a dip in commodity prices or real estate prices or wherever you're at, or stock prices, you can do so. You can do so because you have a cash reserve. You will not have to sell low. That's why you want to have a fiat cash reserve. It's smart. The central bank should act more preemptively and more aggressively than usual in cutting rates when there's problems with the economy and when inflation is already low. So he's already done that. He's cut them as far as he can go. Now, You know, they also talk about back in 2002. So today, an ounce of gold sells for $300 more or less. Well, it goes to tell you what happened since then. As a reminder, 10 years from now, it's declining, but it's still over $1,500 an ounce. So quite a big difference, 5 times. So, you know, some years from now, it could very easily be in $8,000 an ounce or something. Who knows? Although a policy of intervening to affect the exchange value of the dollar is nowhere on the horizon today, that's back in 2002, it is worth noting that there have been times when the exchange rate policy has been an effective weapon against deflation. Now, this is the interesting statement here. This is the last thing. This is the thing he hasn't done yet. And this is the thing that they're all rumoring behind the scenes that they're getting ready to do for 2012. That could very well be. And they give the example when they did with the gold. The striking example from U.S. history is Franklin Roosevelt's 40% devaluation of the dollar against gold in 1933-34, enforced by a program of gold purchases and domestic money creation. The devaluation and rapid increase in money supply it permitted ended the U.S. deflation remarkably quickly. Indeed, consumer price inflation in the United States year to year went from minus 10.3% in 1332 to minus 5% in 1933 to 3.4% positive in 1934. The economy grew strongly. And by the way, 1934 was one of the best years of the century for the stock market. So he's not going to play around with, trying to buy back gold, but he's probably going to do something with the Chinese yuan. That's what's been, rumored, and that's what's rumored to going on behind the scenes. And it's kind of interesting that, China is being allowed to buy, banks here in the United States. Yeah, that's pretty revealing itself. The Bank of China, which is actually run by the state of China, is buying a bank in New York City. So it's this bank here, the Bank of East Asia USA, located in New York City. So that's going to leave the door open for more banks to be bought up, and this is probably one area you're going to see the metals probably take off pretty hard this year. If there's a 40% devaluation of the dollar, now they're coming up with this 40% of devaluation of the dollar off of this 40% devaluation of the dollar that happened because they did this purchase of gold back in 1933 and revalued it. Other than that, there's nothing I can see anywhere other than rumors that there'll be a 40% devaluation in the dollar against the Chinese yuan. Now, what I think is going to happen, there's going to be appreciation of the Chinese yuan, and thus a devaluation of the dollar by, definition, because the yuan appreciates. It's like everything's kind of floating in the ocean here. One goes up, the other one goes down. That's just how it works. But 40%, I don't know. I don't know about that. And I swear, I listened to Pastor Lindsey Williams too, and I wish I could trust that information, but I got to go by what I think. I think what's going to happen this year, I think it's partly true. You're going to have a devaluation of the dollar, but I don't think it's going to be 40%. I don't think it's going to be effectively dead and lose its world reserve currency in 2012. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to happen a little bit. I don't think it's going to happen as severe as all the rumor mills are saying it is. But it's just that I think that a few other things might bring the metals up because they're going to push QE. It's going to be devaluation of the dollar somewhat. And we're going to have the conflict with Iran. That's going to bring up gold and oil. And I think silver is going to go right up with it too. And there's going to be and also the U.S. debt is going to be downgraded again. So that's going to push up a lot of things. But I'd be careful about some of these rumors. I didn't want to actually show where I was reading the rumors itself. I just wanted to go right to the exact document that they're picking the lines out from to make their case. And it's not a very, very, very strong case at all to say that the dollar is going to be devalued 40% this year. I think it's going to be devalued, but I think they're exaggerating in a lot of these alternative media sources, and the basic premise is correct, but it's overblown. It's overblown. But do beware, hold on with the gold and silver, because somehow I do think what I smell as a real problem coming up, and they've been talking about this for years, is the derivatives bubble. The thing that's like supposedly over $250 billion, it exceeds the world's GDP by several times over. That probably is a deliberate plan to explode the economy or the financial system so it can be rebuilt. As far as that being a conspiracy or just like a rumor mill conspiracy, I don't think so. I think that's legit. You got to have crisis to produce change. So the derivatives bubble is probably something that's going to happen in a line somewhere in the future. And that's something Mark Farber alludes to quite a bit. That just makes plain common sense. And as I stated before, he seems to be over 25% invested in gold or even more. And if he's doing that, I think he's got a winning bet. He's got a winning investment. So the rumors may be exaggerated, but they're not that far exaggerated. Not sure about the Earth, everything falling apart this year, as some people are saying, but we probably will see a slide in the dollar this year. That's probably a decent bet.